What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today we got the day 14 and 15 recap of the 2022 Chicago Bears training camp. In general, they started off practice on Monday with no pads, just helmets and a shorter practice, which was open to the public. And they followed that up today with a close to public practice, but still good info was given out, and they were also in pads today. So let's get right into it and talk about the players that are actually back. David Montgomery, Cole Kmet, Velus Jones Jr., Kyler Gordon are all back, which is obviously great having the rookies and the key players on the offense finally back. Also, cornerbacks Kindle Vildor and Duke Shelley. So finally having some corners back that can compete for these backup jobs. And also tight end James O'Shaughnessy as well as Mario Edwards Jr. So that already wraps up the players that are back. So let's move on to the non-participants and the injury update. Lots to get into. Jaquan Brisker, the safety, is considered day-to-day with something minor, probably just banged up from the Chiefs game, and he was working on a bike. As for rookie center Doug Kramer, he could have suffered a Lisfranc injury, and if so, it could be most likely a season-ending injury. It's obviously unfortunate for the young center. I thought Doug Kramer was actually doing a good job, and I would have liked him as the backup for Lucas Patrick over Sam Mustipher, definitely. So obviously it's bad for him and for us, for the Bears in general, having to miss a rookie draft pick, which you obviously have invested a pick into. So sad for Doug Kramer, and I hope he recovers quickly. As for Justin Jones, he was on a bike today as well, and also Tajay Sharp, Byron Pringle, and Dane Cruikshank. I hope he's back quickly, and I definitely want to see him play against Seattle. I mean, Cruikshank is an electric player, an electric safety, and I would love seeing him covering, I don't know, Noah Fant maybe, which would be a great matchup, but let's see what happens with him. As for the roster moves, the Bears have to cut down their roster from 90 to 85 by today. They should have done it already, but they have not given out the information who it actually was. But there was still some roster moves going on. The Bears released defensive lineman Carson Taylor, tight end Ryzen John, and linebacker Noah Dawkins, and signed offensive lineman Corey Dublin and safety John Alexander. So he is finally back with the Bears, one of the smaller fan favorites out there. And I mean, the Bears still have to cut 4 players, so let's see who these guys will actually end up being. And also Matt Eberflus said a lot of interesting stuff in his press conference today. He talked about the upcoming game against Seattle and mentioned that the starters probably will only get 6 to 10 snaps, for most of the starters at least, and some will get 20. The young players will definitely play a lot in that game. I think that's just due to the short week. You want to get the fresh legs in, they will get more time, so I expect Kyler Gordon and maybe Velus Jones Jr. to get more snaps in that game. I think Jaquan Brisker won't play in that game, as well as all the players I mentioned in the injury update. They just want to keep it safe. I mean, it's only preseason and you don't want to risk injuries, which is obvious. So with that being said, let's move on and talk about the offensive performance of the 2 days. And starting off, the offense definitely struggled on Monday. After a good start to practice, the wide receivers weren't doing a great job at getting open, and also the offensive line, especially the tackles, struggled heavily on those 2 days. As for quarterback Justin Fields, he started with 2 touchdowns to Darnell Mooney in the red zone period, and the connection between these 2 guys is just building up, which I love to see. And later he connected with the player finally being back, Cole Kmet, as well for a first down, which was great as well, just involving his tight end as soon as possible again. And later he had the throw and catch of today to Daz Newsome, perfectly placed ball over the middle away from Kyler Gordon, who was in good coverage, and by reports a beautifully thrown ball by Justin Fields, so love seeing that, but not a lot more about Justin Fields today. As for the running backs, Khalil Herbert spent 45 minutes yesterday with the jug machine, catching the ball, just focusing on it and leading it with his eyes into his hands, and I think that was definitely necessary, and I love the effort from Khalil Herbert after having a rough day catching the football against the Chiefs. As for Kari Blessingame, the fullback, he had 2 touchdowns, one yesterday catching it in the flats, and today running it into the end zone as well, so nice seeing the fullback getting involved into the offense. As for the wide receivers, Darnell Mooney with 2 red zone touchdowns, like I've already mentioned. The Bears definitely lack those red zone threats, and you need your wide receiver 1 to step up in these situations, so I love seeing that development of Darnell Mooney. Also, Dez Newsome with the catch of the day, high pointing the football against Kyler Gordon in coverage after an amazing game against the Chiefs with that beautiful touchdown in the end zone. I think Dez Newsome once again proved that he has deserved a roster spot on that Bears team, and I absolutely love it. Such a great guy. As for Nasimba Webster, he got a good amount of reps with the first of the last couple of days. That's not a great development in my opinion. I don't want to see him taking a lot of more first reps at all. I mean, he's a good returner, but not a great wide receiver. And also Dante Pettis was mentioned with a deep touchdown thrown by Trevor Siemian, where he really made a great job at getting open. So like seeing Dante Pettis having an impact as well. Moving on to the tight ends, not a lot about Cole Kmet. He was just having a nice first down catch with Justin Fields, building up that connection once again after finally being back at practice, making his presence felt immediately, but nothing more about him. And before we talk about the offensive line, I want to start off talking about one player specifically, which is Teven Jenkins. And Tevin Jenkins had an interesting development over the last 2 practices now, because he did start with the second team on Monday at right guard and followed that up today with starting for the first at right guard. I think that's the first time for him being back with the first team after his trade rumors, so I love the attitude first and foremost, just of fighting himself back into the lineup, and he was also doing great by reports, and I mean there is definitely a spot for him at the right guard position. Tevin Jenkins definitely fits the mold of an offensive guard. I mean, he's highly athletic, is a mauler, and is really successful in the run game blocking for his guys. And what I've always loved about his game is his blocking in the second level. And if you are a guard, you obviously have the opportunity to do that way more than at tackle. On pull blocks, he can pull out and just block for his guys out there, attack the defensive players, and that's definitely something where he absolutely excels at. So I'm super excited for Tevin Jenkins to get that opportunity, even starting with the first team today. And I mean, Michael Schofield, the initial starter who started also the game against the Chiefs, did struggle in that game. He had his ups and his downs, but I mean the downs definitely did overweight the good points of that game by him. So I think Tevin Jenkins really has a true shot at competing for the starting right guard spot. Obviously, it's unfortunate you drafted him to be your franchise left tackle or right tackle, but we got a new regime. They see their players in a different way, or our players in a different way. And if they like Tevin Jenkins at right guard, I don't have any problems with that move. I think he's definitely fitting that position quite well, and I just love the adjustment also by Tevin Jenkins, accepting his faith and doing everything he can to get back into that starting lineup, and as it looks like, definitely worked off. He had also a nice block today to help getting Kari Blasingame his rushing touchdown today. So I just love the positive reports about Tevin Jenkins, and I mean, we all want him to succeed. He's still young, has all these talents, and I mean, if he gets developed correctly by Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach, he could really develop into a nice offensive guard. So with that being said, let's talk about the overall offensive line position today. The starters were on Monday Braxton Jones, Cody Whitehair, Sam Mustipher, Michael Schofield, and Riley Reiff. As for today, Teven Jenkins was in, like I said, for Michael Schofield, as well as Larry Borum for Riley Reiff. By reports, it's mostly just because Riley Reiff probably will sit out the Seattle game, as he's still, I don't know if he's battling with anything or if it's just a veteran thing. Could be anything, but by the end of the day, Larry Borum did a good, solid job against the Chiefs as well. Not flawless without a doubt, but still did a good job. And I mean, I like him actually getting a shot at starting against the Seattle Seahawks, although I think the competition is definitely more towards Riley Reiff's side. But I mean, like I said, Teven Jenkins could definitely take over that spot for Michael Schofield. So let's see how the 2 draft picks from last year actually do against the Seahawks. And with that being said, that wraps up the offensive performance of today and yesterday. I think lots to learn from the offense. Not perfect at all. They struggled a lot at times, but you have to take the negatives and turn them into positives. Watch a lot of film, and let's see how they respond against the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday. And with that being said, let's move on to the defensive performance. And what was definitely once again evident in practice, the defensive line is absolutely dominating. Robert Quinn took the rookie Braxton Jones back to school with absolutely destroying him. Quinn had 3 to 4 sacks on Monday, which is absolutely insane. And I mean, that's also great for the rookie Braxton Jones. He has to learn how to play against these elite edge rushers, and having one opposite of him in practice every single day, and at times also that whoops his ass, is absolutely great to just learn from it. So iron sharpens iron is definitely the case here, and I love it. And also love that Robert Quinn is still putting up so much pressure and getting the sacks as well. Obviously not sacking Justin Fields, but just getting there and touching him. As for the other defensive lineman, Al-Quadin Muhammad continues where he left off on Saturday, just straight up pressuring the quarterbacks. Absolutely love his effort and how he does so far for the Bears. Also, Dominique Robinson, I thought it was interesting. He got some more first team reps again, to the opposite of Robert Quinn. So it seems like the rookie really impressed the coaching staff against the Chiefs, as he did me as well. I mean, he had a sack and looked really good in the limited amount of time that we saw him. As for the defensive lineman Trayvon Coley, who we just signed a couple of weeks ago, even if not just a week ago, he was with the Twos yesterday after his great 2-sack performance. So I love seeing this defensive lineman getting their recognition and also still performing on a high level. As for the linebackers, it looks like standout player Jack Sanborn was promoted and started with the second team yesterday in the red zone drill, so love seeing the rookie getting the recognition that he deserves after his amazing performance against the Chiefs. As for star linebacker Roquan Smith, he will actually travel with the team to Seattle after these weird things about his agent. I don't want to get into that too much. I don't care about it, honestly. I just want him to be a Bear for life. That's what I want, so I hope the situation gets solved by Ryan Bolts. But it's a good sign that he will actually travel with the team to Seattle, so glad hearing that. As for the defensive backs, Kyler Gordon finally back at practice. He was also back at nickel today, and when he was at nickel, Lamar Jackson was the starter opposite of Jalen Johnson. So interesting seeing him once again back there, even though Kindle Vildor is back at practice. But I mean, to me, Lamar Jackson's definitely the better option. And I think he did actually look nice against the Chiefs, even though a lot of people were criticizing him. He had his ups, he had his downs, but overall I think a good performance by him. As for Kyler Gordon, he also had a pass breakup in the 2-minute drill yesterday, so love seeing the rookie being back and making plays once again. And also something on DeAndre Houston Carson. He was the starter opposite of Eddie Jackson with Jaquan Brisker out. We saw him in these dime packages a lot on the weekend, so no surprise seeing DHC as the starter when Jaquan Brisker is out. And that already wraps up the defense, guys. Lots of positive stuff about them. They're still balling out, and I definitely want to see how they do against Seattle on the weekend after kind of getting manhandled against the Chiefs in the first drive. So I'm definitely excited for that. So with that being said, that wraps up the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. No special teams information was given out, unfortunately, today, so I'm sorry, guys. Definitely stay tuned for the preview against the Seattle Seahawks, which should drop tomorrow, as well as the game preview and film room session afterwards, so definitely stay tuned for that as well. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.